The great hall of Valdrin had never known silence like this. 300 wolves stood beneath black and silver banners, waiting for their alpha king to condemn the traitors chained before his throne. Then the great oak doors burst open. A little girl ran into the hall barefoot, bleeding and covered in tears. Before anyone could stop her, she threw herself at Alpha King Calium Blackmere's leg. "Please," she sobbed, "they hurt my mama. They hurt her so badly, and now she will not wake up." The court froze. Calium Blackmere did not kneel for lords, allies, or kings, but that day, before every wolf in Valdrin, he lowered himself to one knee before a crying child. And when her dying mother was carried into the hall 20 minutes later, Calium saw the impossible. Molten gold eyes, shadow blight over her heart. The last soul seer in existence. And someone had tried to murder her. That was the moment Alpha King Calium Blackmere abandoned judgment, politics, and every watching eye in his court. "Take her to my private chambers," Calium commanded, his voice cutting through the hall like a blade. "Summon Helwyn the healer. No one else enters. No one speaks of this. Anyone who disobeys will answer to me personally." He stood still, holding Neve, and strode toward the doors without a backward glance at the assembled court or the trial he was abandoning. "My king," the seneschal called after him. "What about Lord Varick?" "The judgment." Calium paused at the threshold. When he turned, his eyes found Lord Varick's face with predatory precision. "Keep him in chains," the Alpha King said softly. "Double the guard. I have questions for him. Many questions." And then he was gone, carrying a child in his arms, following a dying woman whose existence should have been impossible. Behind him, Lord Varick's mask of defiance had finally cracked. He looked afraid. The king's chambers were warm with firelight, but the woman on the bed seemed to grow colder by the minute. Calium stood at the foot of the massive four-poster bed, watching Helwyn work. The old healer's hands moved with practiced efficiency, applying poultices and murmuring words of power. But her face grew grimmer with each passing moment. "Well?" Calium demanded. Helwyn sat back on her heels, wiping her hands on her apron. "The shadow blight has reached her heart, my king. Another hour, perhaps 2, and it will consume her entirely." "Then stop it. I cannot." The words clearly cost the old healer her pride. "This curse was crafted by someone with knowledge I do not possess. The magic is woven into her very soul. Every time I try to pull it out, it burrows deeper." Calium's hands curled into fists. "There must be something. There is one thing." Helwyn hesitated. The old texts speak of a bonding ritual. If an alpha of sufficient power were to share his life force with the afflicted, no. The refusal came too quickly, too sharply. Helwyn's eyebrows rose, but she said nothing. On the bed, the woman, Era, according to the faded documents they had found sewn into her dress, made a sound of distress. Her head thrashed against the pillow, and black tears leaked from the corners of her closed eyes. "Mama!" Neve scrambled onto the bed before anyone could stop her. She grabbed her mother's hand, pressing it to her cheek. "Mama, please, please wake up. Please do not leave me." Something cracked in Calium's chest at the sight. He remembered being that small. He remembered holding his own mother's cold hand, begging her to open her eyes, not understanding that death could not be bargained with. "Leave us," he told Helwyn. My king, leave us." The healer departed with a bow, closing the heavy door behind her. Callium approached the bed slowly. Neve looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. Her small face, a portrait of grief too large for her years to contain. "Is she going to die?" the child whispered. "He should lie. A kind man would lie. Not if I can prevent it," he said instead. He sat on the edge of the bed, studying the woman's face. Even ravaged by the curse, there was strength in her features, a stubborn set to her jaw, a fierce arch to her brows. This was not a woman who surrendered easily. "What is the shadow?" Neve asked, her voice barely audible. "Why is it hurting her?" Callium considered how to explain ancient forbidden magic to a 5-year-old. "It is a very old curse," he finally said. "Someone used it to hurt your mother because they were afraid of her." "Afraid of Mama?" Neve's brow furrowed. "But Mama is good. She helps people. How does she help them, little one?" Neve bit her lip, suddenly uncertain. "I am not supposed to tell. Mama said never to tell anyone about the seeing." The seeing? Callium's suspicions solidified into certainty. "Neve," he made his voice gentle, though gentleness had never come naturally to him. "I need to know what your mother can do. It might help me save her." The child searched his face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she leaned closer and whispered, "Mama sees inside people. She sees if they are lying. She sees if they are hurting. She sees the true self underneath. Soul sight, the forbidden gift." Once wolves with this power had served as advisors to kings, rooting out traitors and liars. Then they had been hunted, slaughtered, erased from existence, because the secrets they could reveal made powerful men vulnerable. "Has she seen inside me?" Callium asked quietly. Neve shook her head. "Mama's eyes were closed when the bad men came. She has not opened them since." As if in response to her daughter's words, Era suddenly convulsed. Her back arched off the bed, and a scream tore from her throat, raw, agonizing, and barely human. The black veins on her skin pulsed and spread another inch toward her heart. Neve wailed, clutching her mother's hand. Callium moved on instinct. He pressed both palms flat against Era's shoulders, pinning her to the bed as she thrashed. Her skin was ice cold, but beneath the cold, he could feel her wolf weak, fading, but fighting desperately against the darkness consuming it. "Hold on," he growled, though she could not hear him. "Damn you, hold on." Her eyes flew open. Gold met gray, and the world stopped. Callium felt it the moment her sight touched him. A presence sliding through his defenses like water through cracks in stone, reaching into places no one had ever touched. She was seeing him, the real him, every dark thought, every buried fear, every shame he had spent, a lifetime hiding behind walls of cold authority. He should have pulled away. Every instinct screamed at him to break the connection. Instead, he leaned closer. "I see you," Era whispered, her voice cracked and hollow. "I see what you hide. I see the boy who watched his mother die. I see the man who built walls so high he forgot what sunlight felt like." Her hand lifted, trembling violently, and pressed against his chest, and I see the heart that still beats beneath all that armor. A clear tear, not black, slid down her cheek. "Do not let them break you, Alpha King. Do not let them turn you into what they fear." Then her eyes rolled back, and she went limp. "Mama!" Neve screamed. Kelliam pressed his ear to Era's chest, a heartbeat thready, weak but present. She is alive. "Aye," he said. "She is still fighting, but for how long?" The shadow blight had nearly reached her heart. Helwyn could not stop it. Normal healing could not stop it. There was only one option left, the bonding ritual. Sharing his own life force with her, linking their wolves so intimately that his strength could bolster hers. It was dangerous. It was not easily undone. It would bind them together in ways no healer fully understood. And he had known this woman for less than an hour. But when he looked at Neve, small, terrified, clinging to her mother's hand with the desperation of a child who had nothing else in the world, Kelliam knew he had no choice at all. "Helwyn!" he bellowed. The door flew open instantly. The healer had been waiting just outside. "The bonding ritual," Kelliam said. "Tell me what I need to do." Helwyn's face went pale. "My king, you cannot be serious. The bonding ritual is not a full mating claim," Helwyn warned, "but it is still permanent enough to matter. It would tie your life force to hers and create an unfinished bond that only she could complete or reject if she survived. I am aware. If she dies, you could die with her." I said, "I am aware." The old healer opened her mouth to argue further, but something in Kelliam's expression stopped her. She had served 3 generations of Blackmere kings. She had never seen this one look quite like this. "Very well," she said quietly, "but the child must leave. What happens during the ritual is not for young eyes." Kelliam turned to Neve, who had curled herself into a ball against her mother's side. "Little one." "No," the word came out fierce despite the trembling. "I am not leaving her. I am going to help your mother, but I need you to wait outside with Helwyn. Just for a little while. You promise you will save her?" Neve's golden eyes, her mother's eyes, he realized now, fixed on his face with desperate intensity. "You promise?" Kelliam hesitated. Promises were not things he made lightly. "I promise," he said, "that I will give everything I have to try." It was not enough. It was not close to enough. But Neve must have seen something in his expression that satisfied her because she slowly uncurled herself and allowed Helwyn to lead her from the room. The door closed with a heavy thunk. Kelliam was alone with the dying woman. He approached the bed, removing his heavy ceremonial coat and rolling up his sleeves. The firelight cast dancing shadows across Era's still form, and for a moment he simply looked at her. "Who are you?" he wondered. "How did you survive when all the others were slaughtered? What have you seen in your life that put such strength in those features?" He would likely never know. She might not survive the night ritual or no ritual. And even if she did, she might hate him for what he was about to do, binding her to a stranger without her consent, making choices about her life, while she lay unconscious and helpless. But the alternative was watching her die while her daughter screamed. He could not do that. Whatever else he was, whatever monster the world believed him to be, he could not do that. Kelliam sat on the edge of the bed and reached for Era's hand. Her fingers were cold as ice, but they twitched at his touch. Some part of her still fighting, still aware. "I do not know if you can hear me," he said quietly, "but I need you to hold on. I need you to fight. Your daughter needs you to fight." He closed his eyes and reached for his wolf. The beast rose eagerly, responding to his call with a surge of primal energy. Callum felt his canines lengthen, felt his eyes shift from gray to molten silver. The transformation wanted to complete itself, but he held it back, channeling the power instead into his palms, where they pressed against Era's skin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shadow blight reacted. The black veins on Era's chest writhed like living things, sensing the threat of his power. They pulsed, contracted, and then struck, sending tendrils of darkness racing up his arms. Pain exploded through Callum's body. He had been wounded before. He had been stabbed, shot, burned. But this was something else entirely. The shadow blight did not just hurt his body. It clawed at his soul, trying to find purchase, trying to burrow into him the way it had burrowed into her. His wolf howled in fury and threw itself against the invasion. The battle that followed was invisible to any observer. It took place in the space between heartbeats, in the realm where wolf spirits dwelled. Callum felt himself standing on a dark plain, facing a mass of writhing shadows that had wrapped themselves around a flickering golden light. Era's wolf, small, barely visible, but still burning. The shadows turned toward him, sensing fresh prey. They surged forward with hungry intent. Callum did not retreat. He let his wolf take full form, massive and silver white, radiating power that came from generations of alpha blood. The shadows hesitated. "She is mine to protect," he heard himself growl, though his physical mouth never moved. "You will not have her." The shadows screamed in a voice that was not sound, a psychic shriek of rage and hunger. They attacked. The fight was brutal and brief. Callum's wolf tore through the darkness with savage efficiency, shredding shadow with teeth and claws that burned like starlight. Each tendril he destroyed weakened the whole, and he could feel Era's wolf growing brighter as the corruption released its hold. But the shadow blight was not so easily defeated. A final tendril, thicker and darker than the rest, had wrapped itself around Era's heart. As Callum reached for it, it contracted viciously. Era's body convulsed on the physical plane. Her wolf flickered dangerously. No. Callum seized the tendril with both spectral hands. "No, you do not." He pulled. The pain was beyond description. The shadow blight was not just wrapped around her heart. It had fused with it, and tearing it away meant tearing part of himself with it. He felt his own wolf weakening, felt his life force draining into the void, but he also felt the tendril loosening. "Fight!" he snarled at Era's fading wolf. "Damn you, fight with me!" For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the golden light pulsed. Era's wolf impossibly surged. It did not attack the shadow. It did something stranger. It opened itself, showing the shadow every terrible thing it had witnessed, every pain it had endured, every moment of suffering it had survived. And the shadow recoiled from her soul sight. She was using her gift even now, even unconscious, showing the darkness a truth it could not bear to see. The tendril released. Callum ripped it free and destroyed it in a blaze of silver fire. On the physical plane, both of them gasped simultaneously. Two sets of eyes flying open, two chests heaving with desperate breaths. The black veins on Era's skin were fading, retreating, dissolving into nothing. She was alive, she was healing, and Callium's wolf was pressed against hers, in a space that existed beyond the physical, wrapped around her golden light in a protective embrace that felt like coming home. "What have I done?" he thought, but his wolf only rumbled with deep satisfaction. Era's eyes found his face. "You," she whispered. Her voice was raw, broken, but her gaze was clear. "I saw you in the darkness. You came for me." "Someone had to," he said roughly, trying to pull back to create distance. But his wolf would not let him. The life bond had formed, incomplete, because she had not chosen him in return, but real enough to bind his wolf to hers. He could feel her heartbeat as if it were his own, could sense her confusion and fear and the desperate hope she was trying to suppress. "My daughter," Era said suddenly, struggling to sit up. "Neve, where is Neve? Is she? She is safe. She is waiting outside." Era's eyes filled with tears. "She found you. She actually found you. I told her." She broke off, pressing a hand to her mouth. "You told her what?" "Nothing." But Callium could feel the lie rippling across their new connection. A discordant note trembled in the fragile thread between them. He was about to press further when Era's gaze dropped to her own chest. The black veins were gone, but something else had appeared in their place. A silver mark directly over her heart, shaped like a wolf's paw print. His mark, the unfinished bond between them. Era's breath caught. Her eyes flew back to his face, wide with shock and something else. Something that looked like recognition. "You bound us," she whispered. "Not fully," Callium said, though his voice was rough. "The bond is unfinished. You were dying. It was the only way to keep you alive long enough to choose. Do you have any idea what you have done?" Before he could answer, the door burst open. Neve flew across the room and launched herself onto the bed, wrapping her small arms around her mother with a sob of pure relief. Era caught her daughter, clutching her close, tears streaming down both their faces. Callium rose from the bed, stepping back to give them space. His body ached, his wolf was exhausted, and his heart was doing something it had not done in 20 years. It was feeling again. Helwyn appeared in the doorway, her ancient face slack with astonishment, as she took in Era's healed form, the silver mark on her chest, and her king's shell-shocked expression. "My king," she breathed, "what have you done?" "What I had to," Callium said. But even as he spoke, his eyes remained fixed on the woman and child, embracing on his bed two strangers who had somehow become the most important people in his world. And somewhere in the back of his mind, his wolf was humming with fierce protective joy, repeating a single word over and over, "Mine, mine, mine." Not possession, not ownership, but recognition. 3 days passed in the king's chambers, and Era grew stronger with each one. She woke on the first morning to find Neve curled against her side, and the Alpha King asleep in a chair by the window, his head tilted at an angle that would surely leave his neck aching. The sight of him there, this terrifying ruler who had abandoned his own trial to save a stranger, made something flutter in her chest, or perhaps that was the bond. She could feel him now, a constant presence at the edge of her consciousness. When he slept, she sensed the slow rhythm of his heartbeat. When he woke, she felt the sharp focus of his mind clicking into place. It was intimate in a way that frightened her. "You are staring," Calium said. Era startled. His eyes had opened, pale gray and entirely too perceptive. "I was thinking," she said carefully, "about how to thank you for saving my life." "Do not," he said, rising from the chair and rolling his shoulders to work out the stiffness. "I did what any decent person would do. We both know that is not true." Era pushed herself upright, wincing at the lingering soreness in her chest. "You bound yourself to a complete stranger. You risked your life. I made a tactical decision." His voice had gone cold, distant. "A soul seer is a valuable asset. It would have been foolish to let you die." The words stung more than they should have. Era felt the lie pulsing across their connection, felt the way his wolf flinched at the harshness of his own words. But she also understood what he was doing, building walls, creating distance, protecting himself from whatever terrifying thing was growing between them. "Of course," she said quietly, "a tactical decision." Calium's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Neve stirred between them. "Mama." The child's eyes fluttered open, and her face split into a radiant smile. "You are awake. You are really awake." "I am awake, little love." Era gathered her daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. "Thanks to you. You were so brave finding the king." Neve beamed with pride, then turned to look at Calium with open adoration. "He promised to save you, and he did, just like the heroes in the stories." Calium looked deeply uncomfortable with this assessment. "I should go. The court requires my attention." He paused at the door. "Helwyn will bring you food. Rest today. Tomorrow we will discuss arrangements." Then he was gone, leaving Era alone with her daughter, and a bond that pulsed with emotions he refused to acknowledge. "Mama," Neve's voice had gone serious. "Why is the king so sad?" Era blinked. "Sad inside. Some the kind you cannot see unless you really look." Neve tapped her own chest. "It is here, heavy and cold." Era's blood ran cold. "Neve." She took her daughter's face in her hands. "What do you mean? You can see it. Have you been seeing inside people?" The child's expression flickered with guilt. "You said not to. You said it was dangerous." "I am not angry." Era kept her voice steady, despite the terror clawing at her throat. "I just need to know, when did this start? When the bad men came?" Neve's eyes welled with tears. "I was so scared and I wanted them to stop hurting you. And then suddenly I could see them, really see them, all the ugly things inside." Era pulled her daughter into a fierce embrace, her mind racing. Neve had manifested. The gift had awakened in her daughter years earlier than it should have triggered by trauma, by desperation, by watching her mother be tortured, which meant Neve was no longer just a child. She was a target. "Listen to me carefully," Era whispered. "You must never ever tell anyone about this. Not the healers, not the guards, not even the king. Do you understand? But the king is good. I saw inside him. Mama, he has so much hurt. But underneath it is all kindness." Era's voice sharpened. "Promise me." The child's lip trembled. "I promise." Era held her daughter close, staring at the door through which Calium had disappeared. He had saved her life, bound himself to her, and taken them into his protection. But he was also a king whose court had just tried a lord for treason, whose kingdom was clearly full of dangerous secrets. Could she trust him with the truth about Neve? Could she afford not to? A knock at the door made them both jump. "Enter!" Era called, expecting Helwyn with the promised food. Instead, a woman swept into the room, tall, elegant, with silver blonde hair and eyes the color of winter frost. She wore silk and sapphires, and she looked at Era as if examining something unpleasant she had found on her shoe. So the woman said, "You are the creature who ensnared our king." Era straightened, keeping Neve behind her. "I do not know who you are, but I have ensnared no one. I am Lady Seraphine Coldwell." The name was delivered like a weapon. "Lord Varric's sister, and I am the king's intended. You, little soul seer, are a complication I intend to remove." Era's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her face calm. "The king's intended," she repeated. "I was not aware he was betrothed, not officially." Lady Seraphine moved through the room like a predator circling prey. "But it is understood. Our families have been allied for generations. When he finally takes a queen, it will be me. Then you have nothing to fear from a stranger he saved out of pity." Seraphine's laugh was like breaking glass. "Pity? Is that what you think this is?" She gestured at the silver mark visible above Era's neckline. "He branded you, bound his life force to yours. The Alpha King of Valdron does not do anything out of pity." Era felt the truth in those words and hated it. "Whatever his reasons," she said carefully, "I have no designs on the throne. As soon as I am well enough to travel, my daughter and I will leave. Will you?" Seraphine's eyes glittered. "With that mark on your chest, with his wolf wrapped around yours like a lovesick pup," she leaned closer. "I can feel it. You know, everyone with any sensitivity can feel it. The bond between you practically screams." Era's composure cracked. "I did not ask for this bond. No. But you will use it, will you not? That is what your kind does. You worm your way into powerful places, whispering secrets, manipulating truth." Seraphine's voice dropped to a hiss. "There is a reason soul seers were exterminated. You are parasites, abominations. My mother is not an abomination." Neve burst out from behind Era. "She is good and kind, and you are the one who is ugly inside, all twisted up with jealousy." "Neve!" Era clamped a hand over her daughter's mouth. But it was too late. Seraphine's expression had transformed into something hungry, triumphant. "Well, well," she breathed. "The gift breeds true. A second soul seer and just a child." Her smile turned vicious. "The council will be very interested to hear about this. You will say nothing." Era's voice came out savage, desperate. "She is just a child. She does not know what she is. Savior, please." Seraphine was already moving toward the door. "You should have stayed hidden in whatever hole you crawled out of. Soul seer, now your daughter will pay the price for your return." The door slammed open. Kaliam stood in the doorway, his eyes blazing silver, his wolf so close to the surface that the air around him seemed to shimmer with barely contained power. "Lady Seraphine," his voice was deceptively soft, "I do not recall giving you permission to enter my private chambers." Seraphine recovered quickly, dropping into an elegant curtsy. My king, I was merely welcoming your guest. Were you? It was not a question. Kelliam's gaze swept over the scene. Era, rigid with fear. Neve clutched against her mother's chest, Seraphine's predatory satisfaction. The bond between him and Era thrummed with his fury, hot and barely contained. I heard fascinating information, Seraphine continued, undeterred. The child also carries the sight. Surely the council must be informed. The council, Kelliam said, will be informed of nothing without my express command. As will you. Something dangerous flickered in Seraphine's eyes. My king, the laws regarding soul seers are clear. They are to be reported to the High Council for evaluation. The laws also state that anyone under the king's protection is exempt from such evaluation until the king decrees otherwise. Kelliam stepped fully into the room, and Seraphine took an involuntary step back. These two are under my protection, both of them. Question that again, and you will discover just how creative I can be with charges of treason. Silence stretched through the room like a held breath. Of course, my king. Seraphine's voice was ice. I meant no offense. Then you will leave now. Seraphine swept past him, but paused at the threshold. A word of caution, Kelliam. She dropped the formal address deliberately. Your father made the mistake of letting sentiment cloud his judgment. We both know how that ended. Then she was gone. The moment the door closed, Kelliam turned to Era. His eyes had returned to gray, but the intensity in them had not dimmed. Tell me everything, he said. Now Era hesitated, but the bond between them was flooding with his emotions. Protective fury, genuine concern, and beneath it all, a desperate need to understand. He had just threatened his own intended for them. He had put himself between them and danger without a moment's hesitation. Neve manifested. She heard herself say the gift awakened when she watched them torture me. She is a soul seer now, like me. Kelliam absorbed this in silence. And Lady Seraphine, Era continued, she is right about the laws, is she not? Soul seers are supposed to be reported, evaluated. She could not keep the bitterness from her voice. Executed, more likely. Those laws were written 200 years ago by frightened men who could not bear having their secrets exposed. Kelliam moved closer, stopping just inches from where she sat. They have no power here, not while I rule. You cannot protect us forever. Watch me. The words were fierce, absolute, and through the bond, Era felt the truth of them, felt his wolf's savage determination, its willingness to burn the world down before letting harm come to her or Neve. It terrified her. It also made her feel safer than she had in years. Why? She whispered. Why do you care so much? We are strangers. The bond was an accident of necessity. Kelliam's jaw worked. For a long moment, he did not answer. Then his hand lifted, and his fingers brushed the mark on her chest, gentle, almost reverent. Because my wolf has never been wrong about anything, he said quietly. And from the moment you opened your eyes and looked at me, it has been telling me that you and your daughter are the most important things in the world. Era's breath caught. Before she could respond, an explosion rocked the castle. The floor buckled beneath their feet. Kelliam caught Era before she could fall, one arm banding around her waist while the other scooped up Neve. Through the window, Era could see smoke rising from the eastern tower, thick, black and shot through with unnatural green flames. "What is happening?" Neve cried. "Stay here." Kellium thrust both of them toward the interior wall. "Away from the windows. Bar the door behind me. Do not open it for anyone except me or Helwyn." "Kellium," Era started. "Bar the door." His eyes had gone fully silver, his wolf surging just beneath the surface. "Promise me." "I promise." He was gone before the word finished, leaving her mouth, moving with inhuman speed toward the chaos consuming his castle. Era did as he asked, dragging the heavy oak bar across the door with strength she did not know she possessed. The bond hummed with Kellium's emotions, fury, focus, and beneath it all, a cold dread that made her stomach clench. He knew something about this attack that terrified him. "Mama, I am scared." Neve pressed against her side. The angry lady, did she do this? "I do not know, love." Era gathered her daughter close. "But we are going to stay right here until the king comes back." She could feel Kellium moving through the castle, could sense his wolf hunting for the source of the attack with predatory precision. She felt him encounter resistance, felt him fight, felt the hot spray of blood that was not his own. And then she felt something else entirely. A presence, dark, familiar, clawing at the edges of the bond. Shadow blight. No, Era's hand flew to her chest, pressing against the mark that had replaced the poison. No, they had burned it out. It was gone. But the darkness was there, threading through the bond like ink. Bleeding through water, not attacking her this time, using the connection to find her, to track her like a hound following a scent. "They know," she breathed. "They know about the bond. They are using it." A sound from the window made her whirl around. A man stood on the narrow ledge outside, his face obscured by a dark hood. In his hand, he held a vial of something that glowed with sickly green light. "Hello, Soul Seer," he said. "Lord Varric sends his regards. His followers freed him during the first explosion. He is taking back what is his." He hurled the vial through the glass. Era moved on pure instinct. She threw herself over Nave, wrapping her body around her daughter's small frame as the vial shattered against the floor. Green fire erupted, but instead of burning them, it spread in a circle, forming a containment ward that trapped them within its boundaries. "Do not fight it," the hooded man advised, climbing through the broken window. "The more you struggle, the tighter it gets." "Who are you?" Era demanded. "What does Varric want?" "Lord Varric wants many things: power, revenge, the king's head on a pike." The man crouched at the edge of the ward, studying her with clinical interest, but mostly, he wants you. A soul seer bonded to the Alpha King. Do you have any idea how valuable that makes you? Era's blood ran cold. "I will die before I help him." "Oh, you will not die. At least not right away." The man's smile was visible beneath his hood, thin and cruel. "The child, though she is expendable. Perhaps watching her suffer will make you more cooperative." Neve whimpered against Era's chest. Something snapped inside her. Era had spent her entire life hiding, running, surviving through caution and fear. But now, with her daughter trembling in her arms, and this monster threatening to hurt her, something ancient and furious rose up from the depths of her soul. Her eyes flared with golden power. "You want to see what a soul seer can do?" she whispered. She reached out with her gift, Not gently, not carefully, but with the savage desperation of a mother protecting her child. She tore into the man's mind like a wolf tearing into prey, ripping through his defenses, exposing every dark secret he had ever hidden. The man screamed, "You murdered your own brother for an inheritance," Era said, her voice echoing with power. "You betrayed your pack to rogues in exchange for gold. You have killed 6 women who rejected your advances and buried them beneath your family's hunting lodge." "Stop!" The man clawed at his own face as if trying to escape his own memories. "Stop, please. You feel remorse for none of it. The only thing you truly fear is—" Era saw it in his mind and felt her fury turn to ice. "Lord Varric, you are terrified of what he will do if you fail. He will kill me." The man was sobbing now. "He will kill me like he killed the others, like he killed the Ashwood pack. You do not understand what he is, what he can do." The truth hit Era like a physical blow. The masked raiders who had slaughtered her pack 3 years ago had not been rogues at all. They had been Varric's men. He had been hunting soul seers long before she arrived at the castle. "Then tell me everything," Era demanded, her gift pressing deeper. "Tell me why." The man opened his mouth to answer, and then a blade erupted from his chest. He looked down at the silver steel protruding from his body with an expression of mild surprise. Then his eyes rolled back, and he crumpled to reveal Helwyn standing behind him, a bloody sword in her ancient hands. "Nasty creature," the healer muttered. "Are you harmed?" "No." Era stared at the old woman with new respect. "You can fight. I have been alive for 200 years, child. I can do many things." Helwyn knelt beside the green fire circle, studying it with narrowed eyes. "This ward is keyed to soulseer blood. I cannot break it from outside." She looked up at Era. "You will have to break it from within." "I do not know how." "Yes, you do." Helwyn's voice was firm. "You just tore through a trained assassin's mind like paper in a flame." "You have power, girl. Use it." Era looked down at Neve, who was staring up at her with wide eyes. "Mama," her daughter whispered, "your eyes are still glowing." Era closed those golden eyes and reached inside herself, past the fear, past the exhaustion, to the place where her gift lived. It was brighter now than it had ever been. Fed by the bond with Calium, strengthened by her desperate need to protect her child, she gathered that brightness and pushed it outward. The ward shattered. Helwyn caught her when she stumbled, her strength giving out all at once. "We need to move," the healer said urgently. "Varric's men are everywhere. The king is fighting them in the great hall." But the bond pulsed with sudden, sharp pain. Calium had been wounded. Era felt it lance through his shoulder, felt his wolf howl with fury as enemies pressed in from all sides. "He is hurt," she gasped. "He is surrounded. Then we must reach him." Helwyn was already pulling her toward the door. Quickly, before another explosion shook the castle, Era felt Calium's presence flicker through the bond like a candle in the wind. Era ran through corridors filled with smoke and screaming. Helwyn led the way with surprising speed for someone who claimed to be 2 centuries old, her bloodied sword cutting down any enemy foolish enough to block their path. Neve clung to Era's hand, her small legs pumping to keep up. Through the bond, Calium's presence grew weaker with each passing moment. "He is in the throne room," Era gasped. "I can feel him. Then that is where we go." Helwyn did not slow down. "Can you sense how many surround him?" Era reached toward Calium, trying to see through his eyes. The connection was fuzzy, distorted by pain and exhaustion. But she caught flashes, silver blades, snarling wolves, a circle of enemies closing in. "Dozens," she said. "At least?" Helwyn's jaw tightened. "Varric has been planning this for longer than any of us knew. The attack on your pack 3 years ago, it was never about territory. He was hunting soul seers, eliminating anyone who might see through his schemes." They rounded a corner and nearly collided with a group of castle guards, loyal ones, based on the way they immediately formed a protective formation around Era and Neve. "The king," one of them said urgently. "Lady Seraphine has barricaded the throne room. She has declared Lord Varric the true alpha and called for the king's execution." Era's blood turned to ice. "Seraphine is working with Varric. They have been planning this together for years," Helwyn said grimly. "The Coldwell family has wanted the throne for 3 generations. Varric was supposed to marry the previous queen, Calium's mother. When she chose another, he had her killed. Everything clicked into place. Seraphine's visit had not been about jealousy. It had been reconnaissance. She had been looking for weaknesses, for leverage, for anything she could use against Calium, and she had found it. Us, Era realized. We are the weakness. The bond makes him vulnerable. "We have to help him," Neve said fiercely. "The king saved Mama. We have to save him back." The guards exchanged uncertain looks. "The child is right," Helwyn said, "but we cannot simply charge through the front doors. Seraphine has warded them with blood magic." "Then how do we get in?" Helwyn's ancient eyes fixed on Era with unsettling intensity. "There is a way, but you will not like it. Tell me." "The bond," Helwyn said, stepping closer. "It connects your souls. If you push through it, truly push with everything you have, you could reach him, lend him your strength, perhaps even see through his eyes to help him fight." But Era could hear the hesitation in the healer's voice. "The bond is incomplete. He claimed you, but you have not claimed him. Pushing that hard through a one-sided bond could damage you permanently." "What kind of damage?" Helwyn's silence was answer enough. "Do it," Era said immediately. "Mama, no!" Nev grabbed her arm. "If you get hurt, if I do nothing, he dies." Era knelt before her daughter, cupping her small face in her hands. "And if he dies, the people who want to hurt us win. I cannot let that happen. Do you understand?" Neve's chin trembled, but she nodded. "Helwyn." Era rose to her feet. "Tell me what to do." The old healer guided her to sit against the corridor wall, positioning the guards to protect them from any attack. Then she pressed her weathered hands to Era's temples. "Close your eyes," Helwyn instructed. "Find the bond. Follow it to him." Era obeyed. The bond appeared in her mind's eye as a thread of silver light, stretching from her chest into infinite darkness. She reached for it, wrapped her consciousness around it, and pushed. The pain was immediate and blinding. It felt like forcing her entire being through the eye of a needle. Compression, distortion, the sensation of being unmade and remade with each inch of progress. She heard Neve crying out her name, heard Helwyn murmuring words of power. but they seemed impossibly distant. All that mattered was the silver thread. All that mattered was reaching him. And then suddenly, she was there. She saw through Calium's eyes. The throne room had become a battlefield. Bodies littered the floor, some loyal guards, some traitors. Calium stood at the center of the carnage, his wolf fully manifested in a half-shifted form that made him tower over his enemies. Silver fur rippled across his arms, his claws dripped crimson, his eyes blazed with molten light, but he was wounded badly. A silver blade protruded from his shoulder, the same shoulder she had felt pain lance through earlier. Silver poisoning, fatal to wolves if not treated quickly. Surrounding him, forming a perfect circle of death, stood Lord Varric and 24 of his followers. "Surrender, cousin," Varric's voice dripped with false sympathy. "You are outnumbered, outmaneuvered. Accept defeat with dignity, cousin." Calium spat the word like a curse. "You lost the right to call me that when you murdered my mother." Era felt his rage surging through the bond, felt the 20-year-old wound that had never healed, the grief he had buried beneath wall of cold authority. "Your mother was weak," Varric said calmly. "She would have given Soul Seers protected status. She would have undone centuries of what men like you called proper order. I did what was necessary for our people. You did what was necessary for your ambition." "Same thing," Varric smiled. "Just as killing you is necessary now. Do not worry. I will take good care of your little Soul Seer. She will be very useful once I break that bond and remake it with myself." Something snapped inside Calium. He lunged, but his wounded body betrayed him. His leg buckled. Varric's followers surged forward, driving him to his knees with silver chains that burned wherever they touched his skin. Pathetic. Varric drew a ceremonial blade from his belt. The great Alpha King brought low by sentiment. "You should have let the Soul Seer die. Calium, you should have stayed cold." He raised the blade. "No!" Era's scream tore through the bond with the force of a hurricane. Every wolf in the throne room staggered as psychic energy exploded outward from Calium's chest. Energy that was not his own. Varric's blade faltered inches from Calium's throat. "What?" he started, and then Era was there. Not physically, but her presence filled Calium completely, her soul wrapping around his with fierce protective fury. She poured everything she had into him, her strength, her power, her desperate determination to save the man who had saved her. Through their merged consciousness, she spoke directly into his mind. Get up and fight. I did not survive Shadow Blight and assassins, and that horrible woman just to watch you die on your knees." She felt his shock, his wonder, his wolf howling with joy at the feel of her so close, so completely intertwined with him. "You are here, what the?" He thought back. "How are you here? I followed the bond. Now stop asking questions and let me help you." She could not fight for him. She had no control over his body, but she could see what he could not see. She could sense the enemies behind him, predict their movements through their surface thoughts, guide his strikes with perfect precision. Together they rose. What followed was not a battle. It was survival sharpened into violence. Calium moved like death itself, guided by Era's sight. Every strike landed true. Every dodge came at exactly the right moment. His wounds still bled. The silver still poisoned him, but her strength flowed through the bond like a river of fire, keeping him upright, keeping him fighting. One by one, then Varric's followers fell. Impossible! Seraphine shrieked from her position near the throne. Kill him! Kill him now! But the remaining traitors were backing away, their confidence shattered by the unholy display before them. Their alpha king, who should have been dying, was cutting through their ranks like a scythe through wheat. Soon only Varric remained standing. "Impressive trick," the Lord said, though his voice had lost its smugness. "Using your little pet to enhance yourself, but it will not last. I can feel how much this is costing her." How long before her mind breaks from the strain? He was not wrong. Era could feel her strength flagging. The connection that had felt like a river was now barely a stream. She was burning herself out to save him. "Stop," Calium urged her. "You will kill yourself." "Not until you are safe," she shot back. "Not until this is over." "Then let us end it." Calium charged. Varric met him blade to blade, their wolves clashing in a storm of fur and fang. They were evenly matched in skill, but Varric was fresh, unwounded, while Calium was operating on borrowed strength and sheer determination. The fight was brutal. Blood sprayed, bones cracked. The throne room floor became slick with crimson, and through it all, Era watched through Calium's eyes, feeding him information, keeping him alive through moments when he should have died. She saw the opening before he did. Now. Duck left, then strike upward. Calium obeyed without hesitation. Varric's blade whistled over his head. His own claws found their mark, tearing through his cousin's guard and burying themselves deep in his chest. Varric's eyes went wide with shock. "You," he gurgled, blood spilling from his lips. "You were supposed to be weak. You were supposed to be alone." "I was never alone." Calium twisted his claws. "I just did not know it until she showed me." Varric crumpled. Seraphine screamed, a sound of pure fury and despair. She lunged for the fallen ceremonial blade, but the loyal guards had already broken through the blood ward. They seized her before she could reach the weapon, forcing her to her knees. "Take her to the dungeons," Calium commanded, his voice rough with exhaustion. "She will face trial for treason alongside any of Varric's followers who survived." The throne room fell silent, and then from the doorway, a small voice rang out. "Mama." Era's consciousness snapped back to her own body so violently that she screamed. She was on the floor of the corridor, her head cradled in Helwyn's lap, her nose bleeding freely. Neve was clutching her hand, sobbing. "Mama, wake up. Please wake up. I am here." The words came out as barely a whisper. "I am here, little love." Her body felt like it had been turned inside out. Every nerve ending burned. Her vision swam with spots of black and gold. But the bond blazed brighter than ever. And through it she could feel Calium alive, victorious, and racing toward her with desperate speed. He burst through the guards' protective formation seconds later, dropping to his knees beside her with a complete disregard for his own wounds. "You foolish, brave, impossible woman." His hands cupped her face, his eyes searching hers with wild intensity. "You could have died. You could have died too," she answered. "But I did not." She managed a weak smile. "We did not." For a long moment they simply stared at each other. Then Calium kissed her. It was not gentle. It was not careful. It was the kiss of a man who had faced death and emerged victorious, who had felt his mate's soul wrapped around his own, who would never, could never let her go now that he knew what it felt like to be truly whole. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, Neve had stopped crying and was staring at them with open delight. "Does this mean we get to stay?" she asked. Callium looked at the child, then back at Era. The bond hummed with his question, his hope and his fear warring beneath the surface. "That depends," he said carefully, "on whether your mother wants to stay." "The bond is still incomplete," Era whispered. "I never claimed you back." "I know." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "And I would never ask you to. What I did, beginning the bond while you could not consent, was wrong, no matter how necessary it seemed. The full claim is still yours to give or refuse. If you want to leave, I will find a way to loosen what I started. I will let you go, even if it destroys me." She felt the truth of his words pulsing across their connection. He meant it. He would tear his own soul apart to give her freedom if that was what she wanted. But that was not what she wanted. "You impossible man." Era reached up to touch his face, mirroring his gesture. "You saved my daughter. You saved me. You stood against your own counsel, your own intended, your own cousin, all to protect two strangers who wandered into your life uninvited." "You were never strangers," he said, his voice rough. "From the moment your daughter grabbed my leg in that throne room, you and Neve were under my protection. I just did not want to admit it. Then let me make it official." Era pulled herself upright despite her exhausted body's protests. She leaned forward until her lips brushed the spot where his neck met his shoulder, the same spot where he had marked her during the healing ritual. "I claim you," she whispered against his skin. "Kaleum Blackmere, Alpha King of Valdron, I claim you as my mate, my partner, my home, now and forever." And then she bit down. Kaleum's roar shook the stones of the corridor. But it was not a roar of pain. The bond was completing itself, sealing shut, becoming unbreakable. Era felt his ecstasy, his joy, his wolf finally at peace. When she released him, a golden mark blazed on his throat. Her mark, her claim, mine, she breathed, wonder filling her voice. "Yours," he agreed, "always." Nave threw herself at both of them, her small arms wrapping around their necks. "We are a family now," she declared with the absolute certainty of childhood. "A real family." Kaleum looked at Era over their daughter's head, because that was what Neve would become, what she already was in every way that mattered. "Yes," he said, and his voice held no coldness, no distance, only warmth. "We are." 6 months later, the great hall of Valdron had never known celebration like this. 300 wolves filled the stone chamber, packed shoulder to shoulder beneath banners of black, silver, and gold, the gold newly added to honor their queen. They had come to witness history, the coronation of Queen Era Blackmere, first soul seer to hold a throne in over 2 centuries. And beside her, bouncing with barely contained excitement, stood Princess Neve, her small crown slightly askew, and her golden eyes shining with happiness. "Mama," she whispered loudly, "everyone is staring at us." "That is because we are royalty now, little love," Era whispered back. "We are supposed to be stared at. It is weird. Very weird. Era agreed from the throne beside Callium. Callium caught her eye and smiled a real smile, the kind that still made her heart skip, even after 6 months of marriage. The bond hummed with his amusement, his pride, his overwhelming love. "Mine," his wolf purred contentedly. "Yours," she sent back, "always." The ceremony concluded with a howl that shook the rafters. Hundreds of wolves raising their voices in tribute to their new queen. Era let her own wolf join them, finally free to embrace the gift she had hidden her entire life. Later, after the feast and the dancing and the endless congratulations, Era found herself alone on a balcony overlooking the moonlit mountains. Callium appeared beside her moments later, drawn by her thoughts. "Regretting your decision?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Never," she said, leaning into his warmth. "Although I do sometimes wonder what would have happened if Neve had not found you that day, I prefer not to think about it." His arms tightened. "A world without you both in it seems unbearably empty now." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the moon rise over the peaks. "She is happy," Era said finally. "Neve, I have never seen her so happy. She has a family, a home, a very indulgent father figure who refuses to deny her anything." Callium's voice was dry, but his love for Neve radiated through the bond. Speaking of family, Era turned in his arms, meeting his eyes with a secret smile. "I have news." Callium went very still, hope warred with disbelief in his expression. "You are not. I am. You are certain?" Helwyn confirmed it this morning. For a moment, the Alpha King of Valdron, the wolf who had united 5 territories, crushed rebellions, and faced down death itself, looked like he might cry. "A pup," he breathed. "Our pup," Era confirmed. He kissed her then, long and deep and full of promise. Above them, the full moon blazed silver in the sky. Around them, the ancient stones of Valdron hummed with magic and memory. And inside her, growing stronger by the day, was the proof that some bonds were meant to be forged, even if they began with a tiny pup grabbing an Alpha King's leg and sobbing for help. Some stories, after all, were written in the stars.